single dad almost drove past, just another Christmas Eve delivery route. But something about the little girl digging through that dumpster made him stop, and what he found in her pockets would haunt and inspire him forever. Before we continue, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The little girl's hands were freezing as she reached into the garbage bin behind the apartment complex. Her fingers, red and cracked from the cold, searched through discarded pizza boxes and empty bottles. She was 7 years old, maybe 8, and she wore a thin jacket that did nothing against the December wind. Christmas lights blinked cheerfully from windows above, but down here in the alley, everything was gray and dark. She pulled out half a sandwich, examined it carefully, and wrapped it in a tissue she kept in her pocket. A man watched from his car, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. He had been sitting there for 20 minutes, unable to look away, unable to understand why this child was alone on Christmas Eve, digging through trash like she was hunting for treasure. What he didn't know yet was that this little girl wasn't searching for food at all. Archie Schofield had been driving home from his last delivery when he spotted her. The streetlight flickered above the dumpster, casting strange shadows that made the scene look like something from a dream. He was a single father himself, raising his 6-year-old daughter, Lyra, after his wife had passed 3 years ago. Perhaps that was why he couldn't just drive past. Perhaps that was why his heart felt like someone had reached inside his chest and squeezed it. The girl moved with purpose, not frantically, but methodically, like she had done this many times before. Her dark hair hung in tangles around her small face, and her shoes, too big for her feet, made soft scraping sounds against the wet pavement. Archie turned off his engine. The sudden silence felt heavy. Through his windshield, he could see her breath making little clouds in the cold air. She pulled out an empty milk carton, shook it, and set it aside. Then she found a crumpled paper bag and looked inside. Her expression never changed. She didn't cry or look frightened. She just kept searching, kept collecting, kept moving. Something about her calmness disturbed him more than tears would have. Children weren't supposed to be this composed when doing something so heartbreaking. He opened his car door slowly, not wanting to startle her. The girl's head snapped up immediately. Her eyes were large and dark, and they watched him with an awareness that seemed too old for her face. Archie raised his hands, palms out, the universal gesture of meaning no harm. He took 3 steps forward and stopped. The girl didn't run. She simply stood there, holding a crumpled piece of paper she had just retrieved, waiting to see what he would do next. Archie cleared his throat. His voice came out rougher than he intended. "Are you hungry?" The girl tilted her head slightly, considering his question with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Then she shook her head once. "No." "Are you lost?" Another head shake. The wind picked up, sending an empty soda can rattling across the alley. Christmas music drifted from somewhere far away, all jingle bells and joy. It felt obscene against this backdrop. Archie took another step closer. The girl didn't move backward, but her body tensed, ready to bolt if necessary. He could see now that her clothes, though dirty, weren't torn. Her face, though smudged, didn't have the hollow look of real starvation. There were bruises on her knees, visible below her 2 short pants, but they looked like normal kid bruises, the kind Lyra came home with after playing at the park. "Where are your parents?" Archie tried again. This time, the girl pointed up. Archie followed her gesture to the apartment building towering above them. Warm lights glowed in most windows. He could see Christmas trees, stockings hung on walls, the shapes of families moving about in their evening routines. His eyes scanned each window, trying to understand which one belonged to her, trying to understand why she was out here instead of up there. "Which one?" he asked gently. The girl's arm dropped. She looked down at the paper in her hand, then carefully folded it and put it in her jacket pocket. For the first time, Archie noticed that her pockets bulged oddly, stuffed with various things she had collected. Not food. He realized suddenly that she hadn't kept any of the food items. She had set aside the sandwich, ignored the pizza crusts, left the apple core where it was. She was collecting paper. Just paper. "What's your name?" Archie tried a different approach. "Nessa." Her voice was small but clear. She had an accent he couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe, or Greek. "I'm Archie. My daughter is about your age. She's at home right now, probably driving her grandmother crazy waiting for Santa." He smiled, trying to look friendly and non-threatening. "It's Christmas Eve. Shouldn't you be inside?" Nessa looked at him for a long moment, and Archie had the uncomfortable feeling that she was reading him, weighing something in her mind. Then she did something that surprised him. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a handful of papers. They were all different sizes, different colors, some whole, some torn. But they all had one thing in common. They all had writing on them. Archie knelt down, ignoring the cold wetness seeping through his jeans. Nessa held out the papers, and he took them carefully, like they were something precious. Because to her, clearly, they were. His hands trembled slightly as he unfolded the first one. It was a receipt from a grocery store. The second was a page torn from a magazine. The third was a birthday card, unsigned. The fourth was a note scribbled on notebook paper. The fifth was a letter. The ink smudged from moisture but still readable. He spread them out on the ground between them, and Nessa crouched down too, watching his face. The streetlight wasn't great, but it was enough for Archie to see what she had been collecting. Words, stories, messages. Each piece of paper contained human communication in some form. The birthday card said, "Hope your day is special." The note said, "Don't forget milk." The letter began, "Dear John, I've been thinking about what you said." The magazine page had an article about dolphins. The receipt had someone's handwriting at the bottom. "Remember to pick up dry cleaning." Archie looked up at Nessa. Her eyes were fixed on the papers, and for the first time, he saw something in her expression. Hunger. Not for food, but for something else. Something that made his throat tight. "Why are you collecting these?" he asked quietly. Nessa's small hand reached out and touched the birthday card. Her finger traced the words gently, reverently. "I'm learning." "Learning what?" "English." She looked at him then, and the full weight of her situation began to dawn on him. "I read them, over and over, until I understand." Archie felt something break inside his chest. This child was teaching herself English by collecting scraps of writing from the trash. On Christmas Eve, in the freezing cold, while other children were warm inside singing carols and eating cookies, she was out here in an alley, desperately gathering discarded words like other kids might gather candy. "Doesn't your school teach you English?" he managed to ask. Nessa's expression shifted, became carefully neutral. "I don't go to school yet." "Why not?" "Papers aren't ready." She said it simply, factually, like she was commenting on the weather. "Mama says when papers come, I can go, but papers take long time." Archie understood then. Immigration papers, visa paperwork, all the complicated bureaucracy that could trap families in limbo for months or years. He knew the statistics. Nearly 11 million undocumented immigrants lived in the United States, and their children, whether born here or brought here, often fell through cracks in the system. But knowing statistics and meeting a child living that reality were entirely different things. "Does your mother know you're out here?" Nessa nodded. "She works, night cleaning, building downtown. She can't teach me because she always works. But she says in America, you need English, you need reading. So I learn myself." The simple determination in those words hit Archie harder than tears ever could. This wasn't a child being neglected or abandoned. This was a child trying desperately to build herself a future, one discarded piece of paper at a time. Her mother was working, probably multiple jobs, trying to keep them afloat, trying to get their paperwork sorted, trying to survive. And Nessa, instead of complaining or giving up, had found her own solution. The trash bins of people who threw away their words without a second thought became her library. Archie started gathering up the papers, carefully, respectfully. Nessa watched him with concern, like she thought he might take them away. Instead, he handed them back to her one at a time. "These are good for learning," he said, "but I think I can help you find more. Better ones. Clean ones. Would you like that?" Nessa's eyes went wide. She clutched the papers against her chest, and for the first time, she looked like what she was, a little girl who had just been offered something wonderful. She nodded, but slowly, cautiously, like she was afraid to hope too much. Archie pulled out his phone. His mind was already racing through possibilities. He had books at home. Lyra had outgrown so many picture books and early readers. He had newspapers. He subscribed to 3 magazines. He could ask his neighbors, post on the community bulletin board, reach out to Lyra's school. Books, papers, anything with words. He could gather them. But even as he thought this, he knew it wasn't enough. This child needed more than his charity. She needed systematic help. She needed school. She needed stability. "What's your mother's name?" he asked. "I'd like to talk to her." Nessa's expression closed down immediately. The wariness returned, sharper than before. "Mama doesn't like talking to people. I just want to help." "That's what the last man said." Nessa's voice went flat. "Then he told building man we were here. Then the building man said, we have to leave because paper's not right. We had to move, find a new place. Mama cried for 3 days." Archie felt his stomach drop. Of course. In her world, strangers offering help often led to immigration officials, to deportation threats, to families being separated. Trust wasn't just difficult for Nessa and her mother. It was dangerous. He sat back on his heels, trying to figure out how to navigate this. He wanted to help, genuinely help, but he could see now that his good intentions might do more harm than good if he wasn't careful. "I won't tell anyone," he said. "I promise. I just want to bring you some books, that's all." Nessa studied him again with those 2 old eyes. Finally, she said, "Apartment 3C, but knock quietly. Neighbors are nosy." Archie nodded. He stood up slowly, his knees protesting. "I'll come back tomorrow, Christmas Day. I'll bring books and papers. Lots of them. Okay?" Nessa nodded. She carefully tucked her collected papers back into her pockets, making sure none fell out. Then she turned and walked toward the apartment building entrance, with those 2 big shoes scuffing against the ground. At the door, she paused and looked back at him. "Thank you, Archie." She pronounced his name carefully, each syllable distinct. "You're welcome, Nessa." She disappeared inside, and Archie stood in the alley for a long time, staring at the garbage bin. The Christmas lights kept blinking. The music kept playing. Everything looked the same as it had 20 minutes ago, but Archie felt fundamentally changed. He had thought he was going to find a child in need of rescue. Instead, he had found a child who was already rescuing herself, 1 word at a time. The question was whether he could offer help without destroying the fragile stability she and her mother had built. Christmas morning came bright and cold. Lyra tore into her presents with appropriate enthusiasm, while Archie's mother-in-law, Patricia, made coffee and commented on how Archie always bought Lyra too many toys. It was a familiar, comfortable scene, one that Archie usually treasured. But today his mind kept drifting to apartment 3C, to Nessa, to the image of small hands searching through trash for knowledge. After breakfast, while Lyra played with her new dollhouse and Patricia dozed in front of the television, Archie went to his home office. He pulled every children's book off his shelves. He grabbed Lyra's old workbooks, the ones she had used to learn her letters and numbers. He found newspapers, magazines, his old college notebooks still full of lecture notes. He went to Lyra's room and sorted through her bookshelf, taking everything she had outgrown or lost interest in. Picture books, early chapter books, comics, anything with words. "Daddy, what are you doing?" Lyra appeared in her doorway, holding her favorite new doll. "I'm collecting books for a little girl who needs them," Archie said honestly. He had learned early in single parenthood that Lyra responded better to truth than to evasions. "Why doesn't she have books?" "Because her family doesn't have a lot of money, and she can't go to school yet." Lyra thought about this for a moment, her small face serious. Then she walked to her bookshelf and pulled out 3 books. "These are my favorites. She can have them." She held out the books, a worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are, a collection of fairy tales, and a beginning reader about a girl who wanted to be an astronaut. Archie felt his eyes sting. "Are you sure? These are special to you." "That's why she should have them," Lyra said simply. "If I give her books I don't like, that's not really nice. But if I give her my good ones, then she knows I really mean it." Archie pulled his daughter into a hug. "When did you get so smart?" "I was born smart," Lyra said matter-of-factly, making Archie laugh, despite the emotion clogging his throat. By noon, Archie had filled 3 large boxes with books, papers, and learning materials. He loaded them into his car, told Patricia he had an errand to run, and drove back to the apartment building. In daylight, it looked more tired than threatening. The paint was peeling. The parking lot had potholes, but people had hung Christmas decorations in their windows, and someone had put up a small tree in the lobby. People were making homes here, making lives, despite the building's shabbiness. Archie found apartment 3C on the 3rd floor at the end of a dimly lit hallway. He knocked softly, as Nessa had instructed. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then he heard footsteps, and the door opened a crack. A woman's face appeared, young but exhausted. She had Nessa's dark eyes and bone structure. She looked at Archie, at the boxes he carried, and her expression became guarded. "Mrs. Archie realized he didn't know their last name. "I'm Archie. I met Nessa last night. I brought some books for her." The woman's guard didn't drop. "Why?" It was a fair question. Archie tried to explain, stumbling over his words. He told her about seeing Nessa in the alley, about the papers, about his own daughter and having books to spare. He said he worked as a delivery driver, made it clear he wasn't with immigration, wasn't with any government agency. He just wanted to help. The woman listened without expression. When he finished, she said, "People don't do things for nothing." "I'm not asking for anything," Archie said. I'm a father too. If my daughter needed help, I would hope someone would help her." The woman studied him for another long moment. Then she opened the door wider and stepped aside. "Come in." The apartment was small, 1 bedroom, Archie guessed, but it was clean and organized. A thin mattress lay in one corner of the living room, neatly made with blankets. The tiny kitchen area gleamed. There were no decorations, no Christmas tree, but someone had cut out paper snowflakes and hung them in the window. On a small table sat a stack of papers, the ones Nessa had collected. Next to them were more papers, these ones covered in childish handwriting. Nessa's attempts at copying the words she found, practicing, learning. Nessa appeared from what must have been the bedroom. She was wearing different clothes, slightly cleaner, and her hair had been brushed. She saw Archie and smiled, a real smile this time, one that transformed her serious little face into something childlike and sweet. "You came?" she said. "I promised." Archie set down the boxes. "I brought you lots of books." Nessa approached the boxes like they contained gold. She knelt down and carefully lifted out the first book, Lyra's copy of Where the Wild Things Are. She opened it reverently, running her fingers over the pictures, the words. Her lips moved silently as she tried to read the title. Archie sat on the floor next to her. Would you like me to read it to you?" Nessa nodded eagerly. Her mother stood nearby, still wary but watching closely. Archie began to read, pointing to each word as he said it. Nessa's eyes followed his finger with intense concentration. When he finished the first page, she asked him to read it again and again. On the fourth read through, she started saying some of the words with him, her pronunciation careful and deliberate. The mother sat down slowly on their single chair. Archie glanced up at her and saw that her expression had changed. The guard was still there, but behind it he could see something else. Desperation. Hope. The look of a parent watching someone give their child something precious that they couldn't provide themselves. They sat there for over an hour. Archie read. Nessa absorbed every word. He showed her how to sound out unfamiliar words, how to use the pictures for context clues, all the little tricks he had taught Lyra. Nessa was a quick study, hungry for knowledge in a way that broke his heart. When they finally took a break, the mother spoke. "My name is Alessia Bianchi. I brought Nessa here 2 years ago. Her father died. Italy has no future for us. America." She paused, searching for words. "America has schools, has chances. But getting papers is very hard, very expensive. I work 3 jobs, save money for lawyer, for applications, for fees. So much fees." Her English was rough, but understandable. Much better than Nessa's. "I work nights so Nessa is safe here during day. I work days when neighbor can watch her. But neighbor can't teach. Can only watch. I try to teach English, but I'm so tired, and my English is not good. I worry Nessa falls behind. When we get papers, when she starts school, will she be too far behind? Will other children laugh? Will she struggle forever because of this weight?" Archie understood then the full picture. Alessia was doing everything right. Working legally allowed jobs while their applications processed, keeping Nessa safe, saving money, trying to navigate the system. But the system moved slowly, and childhood didn't wait. Every month that passed was a month of learning lost. Alessia knew this. It terrified her. So Nessa had taken matters into her own small hands, teaching herself with trash bin treasures because she understood, even at 7 or 8 years old. That education was the key to the future her mother had sacrificed everything to give her. "How long until your paperwork is processed?" Archie asked. "Lawyer says maybe 6 more months, maybe 8, maybe more. Everything is maybe." Alessia's voice cracked slightly. "I don't know. I just keep working. Keep hoping." Archie looked at Nessa, who was carefully examining each book in the box, treating them like the treasures they were. He thought about Lyra, who had constant access to books, teachers, educational videos, tutoring if she needed it. Lyra took these things for granted because she had never known life without them. Nessa treasured 3 books from a stranger like they were the keys to a kingdom, because for her, they were. "I have an idea," Archie said slowly. "But you need to tell me if it makes you uncomfortable." Alessia's guard went back up immediately. "What idea?" "I'm not a teacher, but I helped my daughter learn to read. What if I came here a few times a week and worked with Nessa? Not officially, just as a neighbor, a friend. I could bring more books, help her with reading and writing, maybe basic math, just until she can start regular school. No money, no paperwork, just help." Alessia's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back quickly. "Why would you do this?" Archie thought about how to answer. He could say because it was the right thing to do, because he had resources to spare, and Nessa had such tremendous need, because seeing a child teach herself with garbage had shaken something loose in his soul. All of these were true, but the deepest truth was simpler. "Because I lost my wife 3 years ago," he said quietly. "And after she died, I didn't think I could survive. But people helped us. Our neighbors brought food. Lyra's teacher gave her extra attention. Strangers were kind in small ways that added up to something big. I couldn't save my wife, but those people helped save me and Lyra. I've been looking for a way to pay that forward. This feels like my chance. Alessia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. She looked at Nessa, who was watching both adults with that intense, too-old expression. Then Alessia looked back at Archie. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. But if you make problems for us, if you tell anyone—" "I won't," Archie interrupted. "I promise you. I just want to help Nessa learn." Archie came back 3 days later with a plan. He had printed worksheets from free educational websites. He had bought a small whiteboard and markers. He had made flashcards with basic vocabulary words. He arrived at 6 in the evening, after Alessia left for her night shift, and before Lyra needed to go to bed. Patricia agreed to watch Lyra for a few hours, without asking too many questions. Nessa was waiting by the door when he arrived. She had cleared the small table, and her papers were stacked neatly to one side. She had even tried to prepare, writing out the alphabet from memory. She had gotten most of the letters right. They started with the alphabet, making sure Nessa knew each letter's name and sound. She knew more than Archie expected, but there were gaps, confusion between certain letters. They worked on those, playing games to help her remember. B and D, P and Q. She was quick, correcting herself after only 1 or 2 mistakes. Her concentration was fierce, total. When other 7-year-olds might have gotten distracted or tired, Nessa pushed forward, determined to absorb everything Archie offered. After an hour, Archie made her take a break. They read together, taking turns with sentences. Nessa stumbled over unfamiliar words, but she never got frustrated. She just tried again, sounding out each syllable patiently until she got it right. Her face glowed with joy every time she successfully read a complete sentence. That joy was addictive. Archie found himself looking forward to these sessions, to seeing Nessa's progress, to being part of her transformation from a child digging through trash to a child reading real books. 3 months passed. Nessa's English improved dramatically. She could read simple chapter books now, write basic sentences, do addition and subtraction. Archie came 4 times a week, bringing new materials, new challenges. Alessia's wariness gradually faded into genuine gratitude. She began leaving snacks for Archie, small thank yous in the form of homemade Italian rice balls or Italian meat stromboli. Lyra came with him sometimes, and she and Nessa would read together, Lyra patiently helping Nessa with difficult words, while Nessa taught Lyra how to fold paper cranes. Then one evening in March, Archie arrived to find Alicia and Nessa's apartment door wide open. His heart stopped. Had something happened? Had immigration finally come? He rushed inside and found Alessia sitting at the table, her face buried in her hands. Nessa stood beside her, one small hand on her mother's shoulder. Her expression calm, but sad. "What's wrong?" Archie asked, his voice sharp with fear. Alessia looked up. Her eyes were red but dry. "Papers came today." Archie's fear transformed into confusion. "That's good news, isn't it? That's what you've been waiting for." "They denied," Alessia said flatly. 2 years, all that work, all that money. They denied our application. We have 30 days to leave the country." The world tilted. Archie grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. "They can't do that. There must be some mistake. Can you appeal?" "Lawyer says we can try, but it costs more money. Money I don't have. I spent everything on first application." Alessia's voice was hollow. "I thought we did everything right. I thought America would see we were trying, that Nessa just needed a chance. But they said no." Archie looked at Nessa. She met his eyes steadily, and he saw in her face the same question that must have been in his own. What happened now to all their work? All those hours of learning, all those carefully memorized words, all that hope they had built together, one lesson at a time. What happened to it if they had to leave? "I'm going to make some calls," Archie said. His mind was already racing. He knew people. He had friends from college, neighbors who worked in legal fields. Someone would know what to do. Someone would know how to fight this. "Archie," Alessia said tiredly, "I cannot pay you back. I cannot pay anyone. I have nothing left." "I'm not asking you to pay," Archie said. He pulled out his phone, his hands shaking slightly with urgency. "Just give me a chance to try." Over the next 2 weeks, Archie made more phone calls than he had in his entire life. He contacted immigration lawyers, community organizations, local politicians. He posted Nessa and Alessia's story on social media, carefully anonymized. He reached out to everyone he could think of who might know something, anything, about how to help. And then something unexpected happened. Lyra's school principal called him. Archie had never told anyone at Lyra's school about Nessa, wanting to protect Alessia's privacy. But Lyra, it turned out, had told her teacher about her friend, who was learning English from trash and might have to leave the country. The teacher had told the principal. The principal had connections to a non-profit organization that specialized in helping families with immigration cases. Pro bono. Archie called Alessia immediately. She was suspicious at first, convinced it was too good to be true. Archie didn't blame her. In her experience, things that seemed too good to be true usually were. But he convinced her to at least meet with the lawyer from the organization. What did she have to lose? The lawyer reviewed their case and found what the previous lawyer had missed, a procedural error in how their application had been processed. Someone had filed the wrong form, used outdated information, missed a crucial deadline. It wasn't Alessia's fault. It was the system's fault. The system that was supposed to help people but was so complicated, so full of traps, that even people doing everything right could fail through no fault of their own. The organization took their case. They filed an appeal. They gathered documentation. They built a story, not of people trying to cheat the system, but of a mother and daughter who represented the best of what immigration could be. A woman willing to work 3 jobs to support her child. A child so determined to succeed that she taught herself English from garbage. These were not people who would be a burden on society. These were people who would contribute, who would succeed, who embodied the resilience and determination that America claimed to value. The appeal took another 3 months. 3 months of uncertainty, of not knowing if each day might be one of their last in America. Archie kept teaching Nessa. Alessia kept working. They all kept hoping, though none of them said it out loud. Hope felt too fragile to speak about. In June, on a hot Tuesday afternoon, the decision came. Approved. Their appeal had been accepted. Alessia and Nessa could stay. They would have temporary protected status while their full immigration case was processed, but they could stay. Nessa could start school in September. Everything they had fought for, everything they had suffered for, had finally come through. Alessia called Archie from the lawyer's office, her voice shaking so badly he could barely understand her words. When he did understand, he had to sit down on the floor of his delivery truck and just breathe. Nessa got on the phone, and she was crying, something Archie had never heard her do in all their months together. "I can go to real school," she sobbed. "I can learn with other children. I can have teachers and books and everything." "You earned it," Archie told her, his own voice thick with emotion. "You worked so hard, Nessa. This is your victory." That evening, Archie, Lyra, and Patricia went to Alessia and Nessa's apartment for a celebration dinner. Alessia had cooked for hours, preparing every dish she knew how to make. The small apartment smelled like heaven. They ate until they couldn't move, laughing and talking. Nessa showed Lyra the paper cranes she had been making, hundreds of them, hanging from strings attached to the ceiling. In certain lights, they looked like birds in flight. "They're beautiful," Lyra said. "What are they for?" "Mama says if you fold 1,000 cranes, your wish comes true," Nessa explained. I made 1,037, just to be sure. Archie looked at those paper birds, each one carefully folded by a child who had taught herself to read with trash, who had wished so hard for a future that she had created her own magic through sheer determination. And he thought about how close they had come to losing this. How, if he had driven past that alley on Christmas Eve, if he had minded his own business, if Nessa and Alessia had been just another statistic of a broken system, the world would have been poorer for it. Nessa started 2nd grade that September. She was behind in some subjects, ahead in others. Her reading level was higher than most of her classmates because Archie had pushed her hard, knowing she had lost time to make up. Her math was weaker, but she worked at it with the same fierce determination she brought to everything. The other children were curious about her at first, about her accent and her story. But Nessa made friends quickly. She had learned, after all, how to connect with people, how to find value in what others discarded, how to create something from nothing. Alessia got a better job, one with regular hours and benefits. Archie helped her with the application, practiced interview questions with her, made sure she understood her rights. She still worked hard, but now she came home most evenings, could help Nessa with homework, could be present in her daughter's life in ways she hadn't been able to before. Archie and Lyra became regular dinner guests at Alessia and Nessa's apartment. The girls had become genuine friends, as close as sisters. Sometimes Archie would look at them reading together or building elaborate structures with blocks, and he would remember that Christmas Eve. He would remember the little girl in the alley, searching through trash with frozen hands. And he would feel grateful that he hadn't looked away, because the truth that left Archie stunned wasn't that a child was going through trash. It wasn't even that she was teaching herself English from discarded papers. The truth that stunned him, that changed him, was simpler and more profound than that. Nessa wasn't searching for help. She was creating her own solution. She wasn't waiting to be rescued. She was rescuing herself. All she needed was someone to see her, really see her, and then to simply step aside and let her shine. What Archie learned from a 7-year-old girl on Christmas Eve was that sometimes the greatest act of kindness isn't doing something for someone. It's giving them the tools to do it themselves, and then standing witness to their victory.